Rolling suitcases clicked across polished floors. Screens flickered with last calls and gate changes. Coffee machines hissed. If this moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sunrise TV for more heartfelt stories. Businessmen rushed. Families hugged tightly before security lines swallowed them whole. And in the middle of all that motion sat a man who felt completely still. Adrian Vale was a name that opened doors. At 47, he owned towers of glass in cities that never slept. Financial magazines had once placed him beside men like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos in glossy spreads about innovation and power. His schedule was planned 6 months in advance. His assistants filtered his calls. His signature moved millions. But today, his phone was off. He sat alone at Gate 32 with a first-class ticket in his pocket and no urgency in his heart. Across the terminal, a little girl struggled to drag a backpack almost as big as she was. Her shoes lit up when she walked, small sparks of color against the gray floor. She looked around, not panicked, but searching. Then her eyes landed on him. She walked straight over. "Are you lost, too?" Her voice was soft but steady, slicing cleanly through the noise of the airport. Adrian blinked. He was not used to being approached, not without an introduction, not without someone knowing who he was. "I'm not lost," he replied automatically. She tilted her head. "You look like you are." He almost smiled at the audacity. "I assure you," he said, smoothing his tailored coat, "I know exactly where I'm going." She sat down beside him anyway. "My name is Lily," she said, swinging her legs. "My grandma is getting snacks. I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, but you don't look like a stranger. You look like someone waiting." The words lingered. Someone waiting. Adrian glanced at the departure board. His flight to Geneva would begin boarding in 30 minutes. A meeting awaited him. Contracts, negotiations, another acquisition, another victory, another empty hotel suite. "And what are you waiting for?" he asked, mostly to be polite. She shrugged. "I'm going to stay with my aunt for a while." "For vacation?" She hesitated. "My mom is sick," she said simply. "The doctors say she needs special medicine in another city. Grandma says I have to be brave and help by not worrying her." Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. Children weren't supposed to say things like that so calmly. "That sounds very brave," he managed. She nodded proudly. "Mom says brave doesn't mean not scared. It just means you keep going." He looked at her more closely now. She had her mother's eyes, he imagined, the kind that held too much too early. "And are you scared?" he asked. "A little," she admitted. "But I talk to people when I'm scared. It helps." He exhaled slowly. "When I'm scared," he said, almost to himself, "I work." "Does it help?" He paused. He had built an empire after his father died bankrupt. He had promised himself he would never feel powerless again. Every late night, every risk, every sacrifice had been armor. Work had protected him from grief, from loneliness, from remembering the small apartment where arguments echoed louder than love. "It helps me win," he said finally. She frowned. Is winning the same as feeling better? The question caught him off guard. No board member had ever asked him that. No journalist had dared. He had money, status, influence. Awards lined his office walls. But when was the last time he had felt better? The last time he had called someone just to hear their voice? The last time someone had called him? Lily watched him carefully. "Are you lost, too?" she asked again. This time her voice carried no playfulness, only curiosity. He swallowed. For years, he had answered questions with strategy, with charm, with controlled narratives. But something about her eyes made pretending impossible. "Yes," he said quietly. The word felt heavier than any deal he had signed. "Yes," he repeated, softer. I think I am. She smiled, not with pity, but with understanding far beyond her age. My mom says grown-ups get lost in different ways. Kids get lost in stores. Grown-ups get lost in their heads. He let out a short, unexpected laugh. That sounds about right. She opened her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. When I feel lost, I draw a map, she said, showing him a crayon sketch. It was messy and colorful, a house, a sun, 2 stick figures holding hands. This is home, she explained. Even if I'm somewhere else, I remember where I'm going back to. Adrian stared at the drawing. He had houses in 4 countries, but he hadn't had a home in years. Where's your map? She asked. He hesitated. I don't think I have one. Well, she said matter-of-factly, maybe that's why you look lost. A boarding announcement crackled overhead for another flight. People around them began to stand. Time moved, but their moment didn't. Why are you really here? She asked suddenly. He considered giving a polished answer. Instead, he surprised himself. I built everything I thought I wanted, he said slowly, but somewhere along the way I stopped knowing why. Did you forget? She asked. Maybe. She leaned closer, whispering like she was sharing a secret. Then remember. He looked at her, confused. How? Think about when you were little, before you had all this. She gestured to his expensive watch. What made you happy then? The question opened a door he had sealed shut long ago. He remembered his mother humming while cooking, remembered fixing broken radios with his father, remembered wanting to invent things that made life easier for people like them. He hadn't wanted to be rich, he had wanted to make things better. Somewhere between survival and success, that boy had disappeared. Another announcement echoed through the terminal. Attention passengers for Flight 417 to Geneva, boarding will begin shortly. His flight, his future, his routine. Lily looked up at the screen, then back at him. Is that you? He nodded. She studied him carefully. Do you want to go? No one had asked him that in years. Did he want to go? The meeting could be postponed, the deal could wait, money would still be there tomorrow. But moments like this? They arrived unannounced and left quickly. I don't know, he admitted. Her grandmother appeared in the distance, waving and calling her name. Lily stood. That's me. She hesitated, then reached into her backpack again. She tore a small corner from her crayon map and handed it to him. Until you draw your own, she said. He accepted the paper like it was something priceless. Thank you, he said, and meant it more than any gratitude he had ever expressed in a boardroom. She stepped back, then asked once more, Are you lost too? He looked at her, at the crowd, at the boarding gate, at the small crayon sun in his hand. No, he said gently, not anymore. She grinned, satisfied. Good, then you'll find your way. Her grandmother took her hand and they disappeared into the stream of travelers. Final boarding call for Flight 417. Adrian stood slowly. Then he did something no one in his company would have believed. He walked away from the gate, not towards another flight, but towards the exit. Outside, taxis lined the curb. The city air felt different. Real. He turned his phone back on. Messages flooded in. He ignored them. Instead, he searched for a different contact, one he hadn't called in 3 years. His younger sister, the one he had drifted from after their mother passed. His finger hovered, then pressed. It rang. Adrian? She answered, surprised. He closed his eyes. Hey, he said softly. Are you home? There was a pause. Yes. I was wondering, he continued, voice unsteady but certain, if I could come over. Another pause. Then warmth. Of course you can. He smiled. For the first time in a long time, the smile wasn't practiced. It was real. Behind him, planes lifted into the sky, carrying people towards destinations on screens. But Adrian had found something rarer than a first-class seat: direction. And long after the gates closed and the airport noise faded into memory, the words echoed in his heart. Are you lost too? Sometimes healing doesn't arrive through therapy sessions or financial milestones. Sometimes it begins with a child brave enough to ask the question no adult dares to answer.